Okay, my past couple of album reviews have been for bands that really lean on like Porcupine Tree and Opeth and like that kind of style of progressive metal and progressive rock. Let's move on to one that leans a little bit heavier on the Hakens and the Native Constructs. Let's dive in.
It may sound minor, but I know that it's major. It may look like a simple complex, but it's compound in nature.
Opus by Nospun. I believe that's how you pronounce them. They are a brand new band, the third in a row to grace this channel. These guys don't have a whole lot of information about them, so I'm not even quite sure where they're from. I do know who they are, though. We got vocals from Philip Reach, guitars by James Nilsson, bass by Cole Millward, drums by Paul Wood, and I believe that's Renee Rumpel, and keyboards by David Frick, Jason Nilsson, Cole Millwood, and additional percussion by James Nelson. So that's the band. Before I get into what I really love about this album, because that will kind of bleed into where I'm going from here, which is some of the things that I'm kind of nitpicking about this album. The first is the length. It's a little bit on the long side. It's an hour and 11 minutes, which I think they could have shaved off maybe about 20 minutes and not lost a whole lot. This is kind of going in the same vein that I feel like if you had the intersection between Haken's first two records, but more predominantly on Visions rather than Aquarius, and you smashed it right into Black Clouds and Silver Linings with, A Nightmare to Remember and The Count of Tuscany, you basically have this album, Like, as I mentioned at the beginning, I was reviewing albums for the Anchoret and Arc Rust, where they were much more like Porcupine Tree and Opeth. These guys are definitely more in the vein of a Dream Theater, of Haken, of Native Construct. Again, I still feel as though all of these albums are really circling around the late 2000s, early 2010s, the first couple of years into the 2010s. I feel like we're kind of stuck there. I feel as though we're stuck in that, a little bit of a time period there. That's a little bit of a drawback, but it's also a little bit more of a exciting part, because that's the type of progressive metal that I love to come to, and one that I will go back to time and time again. When I was talking about Arc Rust, I was using the analogy of burgers when I'm so familiar and love a Biggie Bacon from Wendy's, and then I go and get a burger from Burger King for the first time. It's like, yeah, it's good, but if I want a burger, I'm going to go to Wendy's. This is if I friggin' love burgers and I don't quite care who I get it from, be it Wendy's, Burger King, McDonald's, anywhere, right? I will have a burger almost anywhere. And so even if the burger is at McDonald's, which isn't necessarily my favorite, I'm still going to love that burger, and I feel like that's kind of where we are with this one as opposed to the other bands, because they're emulating and they're leaning so heavily, I want to reiterate that, they're leaning so heavily to the point where, again, they're blatantly ripping it off. There's a couple moments on here that I'm like, yeah, that's A Nightmare to Remember. Yeah, that's Visions, or Nocturnal Conspiracy, or yeah, that's Count of Tuscany. Like it's blatant, and Haken and Dream Theater and to a little extent Native Construct. They could take these guys to court and be like, yeah, those are our songs. Now, that being said, what I'm at least hearing, I'm loving, and I love returning to this album time and time and time again. I love the whole time travel aspect of it, of the kind of like the storyline of it. I'm really loving the journey that these characters go on. The other kind of nitpick, though, is that the album has like this big final closing track as the second last track within the realm of possibility. It's a 15-minute track, and it really does close the album off really, really well. And then we get two other tracks, Back Yet Forward and The House at the Beginning, that I feel like prolong the album a little bit too long, which is a little bit of a shame, because like Back Yet Forward being a 9-minute track it's still really good. Like, it's got some really good things onto it, but it's almost as if the movie came to a very satisfying conclusion and a very satisfying end, and I'm standing up, but the credits aren't rolling. Like, the house lights are on, but the credits haven't kicked in yet. The movie's still playing. And so in that sense, I'm like, well, I don't know. So yeah, I think some of the structure of this album, I think some of the runtime and the structuring of this album needs a little bit of work just to provide a start to finish really solid listen. But that being said, what we do have on here, man, do we have some really tasty things. I love their ability to balance the really hard, aggressive, really moments on here, like the first couple of tracks, Implosion, Overture, and Death of Simpson, with some really fun and jovial tracks like the Dance With Me. We have the opening couple of tracks that really do lay the groundwork out. Really trucking guitars, really deep and like fun metal. You know, it's hard, it's aggressive, but it's not sharp. It's not too bombastic in that sense. You know, we're about as hard as Haken or Dream Theater ever really went without getting too harsh in that sense. And then when we get into Dance With Me, man, it's a lot of fun. It has this really fun rhythm and groove section. It's got this really infectious moments within it. And this band doesn't mind taking a time just to take a quick breather. You know, after the fun, really intense moments of Dance With Me, you have Tougher Love, which is a little bit of a sorbet. It's a little bit of a breather. You know, there's not a whole lot going on. You just have the atmosphere with the synths until we get into Earworm. And Earworm has, it's again, channeling that really fun aspect of Haken and Dream Theater. I'm feeling flavors of Riverside on this record as well, you know, with kind of that more chunky aspects within the metal side itself. Little flavors every once in a while within the singing styles of maybe like a Daniel Gilden Lowe from Pain of Salvation. And again, this is one of the things that I'm like, because to talk about this album, I have to talk about all the different influences rather than just talk about what the album is itself. It's like, yeah, this is good. It reminds me of all these other bands that I've heard before, but it's reminding me of my favorite aspects of those bands, so I can give it a little bit more of a pass. Then we come to one of my favorite tracks, and then there was one. I love how big and bombastic and fun this track is. You know, it's taking some of the moments that I loved from Visions and Crystallize, you know, that big kind of epic soundscapes that we had from Haken that I love, and really solidify it here. There's a lot of ebb and flow within the 7 minutes that we have. Then we come into the song that basically lifts right off of Black Clouds and Silver Linings of 4D printing. Yeah, it lifts right off of A Nightmare to Remember. Like, it's a paint by numbers. I mean, I don't want to end the review on that kind of a note, but again, what I love about this album is I'm finally enjoying a lot of these albums that lean way too hard on their influences, you know, because this is the style of music that I really love, and this is the metal that I really, really love. I'm more okay with it, but it still doesn't give this album a complete pass, you know? I feel as though what they could have done is, again, chopped off maybe about 20 minutes worth of music and then reorganize and contextualize maybe to a grand finale. Instead of it being 15 minutes, maybe being into a 20 or 21 minute big grand finale. I think that would have been a much better, more satisfying end to this album and a much more satisfying listen from start to finish. In the end, though, this album still made me come back for more. It made me really enjoy the music, and I haven't quite run out of my enjoyment for this album. I can't wait to hear what the next project is for this band, because I really hope this isn't a one and done. I can kind of see it being a one and done, but I really hope that it isn't. I hope that they take what they learn and then become more of the band that they were really meant to be. Again, I feel like I'm a broken record with these past 3 album reviews that I've done, where the best moments on this album really are when they are finally freeing themselves of all those influences and all the crutches that they have brought to this album and allowed themselves to be who they actually are. So yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed this one more than the other 2 albums that I've already mentioned before. This one is the one that I've been returning to the most, and the most that I've really been enjoying listening to. So yeah, it's for that reason that I'll say Opus by Nospun is one that I would absolutely pick up in physical format. What can I say? When I love a burger, I love a burger. You know, instead of going to a Wendy's for a Big Bacon Classic, you know, you go to one of those mom and pop shops that is like, this is our version of the Big Bacon Classic. And it's like, yeah, I can taste it. It's definitely here. And it still tastes good because I love a Big Bacon Classic. So that's kind of where I'm at for this debut album from Nospun. And again, because this is where we're starting from, I can't wait to see where we go from here. So I want to know what you guys think about this album. This is the one that I would probably recommend the most out of the 3 or 4 albums that I've covered that definitely play within the metal sequences from the late 2000s, early 2010s. But I want to know what you guys think. This gets the note seal of approval. Let me know if you love this album or if you hated this album by commenting down below. Because that's all I got for you guys today. So, thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.